Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Women Together Connect. I am Antoinette Klatzky and one of our hosts, and so glad to be here with you all today and to be joined by our guest, who I will introduce and turn it over to in a moment. But as we get started, I'd love to just see in the chat, many of us are already saying hello and typing in a little, sharing where they're from. So I will take a look at that and read a few of those out, but feel free to just type in the chat where you're coming from. And sometimes we like to share the weather just to get a sense of what the exterior weather is before we dive into the interior weather. So if you see some of that, feel free to jump in on that too. I see greetings from an overcast Felton, California. Happy holiday wishes from Toronto. Clear and sunny Winchester, Mass. Cool sunny Philadelphia. Rainy Cupertino, California. Chilly and sunny in Louisville, Kentucky. Cold in Long Island. New York City. Near Chicago, also sunny and cold. Sunny New York City, wonderful. It's good to see some familiar faces and see us coming in from all over. Bloomfield, Connecticut, um, Harvard, Mass. Wonderful. So great to be here all together. And what I'd like to do is just to invite us into a little moment of landing. Wherever we may be in this, I see beautiful and bright Austin. I assume it's a bit warmer in Austin if you're in Austin, Texas. But anyway, wherever you may be on this beautiful earth, that you may find a little space to be internally today, and just land here together. So if you are able to and comfortable, you can get both feet on the ground. And just begin to feel, if it's not your feet on the ground, begin to feel perhaps your seat connected to the ground and just feeling somehow connected to this earth, this beautiful, good earth, holding us and connecting us. And just for a moment, acknowledging the ancestors who may have come before us on this beautiful earth, those who may have walked and celebrated and passed away and lived their lives on this beautiful earth. And then bringing the awareness and the attention internal into the physical body. And if closing your eyes is available to you, you can do that. And just for a moment, taking a screenshot or a view of the interior condition, the inner space where you may be today. noticing if there's any aches and pains, any sensation, any feeling positive or negative, just noticing what's going on in the body today. And just being with anything that may be coming up. And then letting it go. Noticing if there is an intention that may be moving for you. So something that brought you here today, perhaps it's to see our wonderful guest, Naomi, or perhaps it's the theme around braving creativity. And just noticing what is coming up for you about being here, connecting with other women, connecting in this group. And then perhaps when you're ready and you have a word or phrase that may describe this intention, you can return your awareness and attention to the chat, to the screen, and type in what brought you here today. One little phrase or word, and we'll share some of those as I turn it over to Naomi, who I am so excited to have here with us. And I'll tell you a little bit about Naomi as you type in your intentions for today. But Naomi is a certified life coach. She's devoted to advancing the work of independent artists and creatives through her company Creativity Matters Coaching. And she's been working with independent artists for 30 years as a planner, performer, nonprofit founder, and a life coach. She has a master's in performance studies and a certification in mindful leadership practice, both from NYU. And her own experience with her husband's alcoholism and death led to her writing Braving Creativity, Artists Who Turn the Scary, Messy, Thrilling Path of Change into Courageous Transformation. She has a gift for turning crisis and confusion into courage and clarity so that women can become the creators of their own lives. She has raised her now 16-year-old son and 18-year-old daughter in Sleepy Hollow, where they still live. And I'm so glad to be reconnected with you, Naomi, because we met many years ago in our Westchester nonprofit work together. And I've been always inspired by the way that you have been supporting arts and the community. So glad to hear of the work that you've been doing now. And I'm glad that you were able to join us here with Women Together. And when I see some of the pieces coming into the chat here, I see a lot around supporting creative efforts, connection, community, rest from work, which is great, getting a little break here. Needing to remember to play while creating, peace, joy. Creativity is a soulful calling for one of our community members here. And just the topic and theme seems to be calling people in. So really wonderful to see what everyone is bringing. And I turn it over to you, Naomi, for our session today.
Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you, Women Connect. I am just smiling ear to ear from this connection and also the way that when we make effort in our lives to heed our soul and heart's calling, how these magical synergies come around. And Antoinette, I was just, I'm in the midst of a transition. It's a long one, another of many transitions. And I saw this friendly energy coming at me, because there's a warmth there. And that's always been there over a decade, I think, ago that we met. And just taking a tiny little inquiry into what might be possible engaging with her, and she had an invitation. So this is the kind of like delight that I get to experience when I am working with my artist clients and creative women in general. So today, I'm crazy passionate about talking about transitions, big change in life, and how we move through big change into uncertainty using our creativity and the creative material in the space of the unknown, in the blank space, the empty page, um, and the empty canvas. And so I'm going to start by just kind of connecting with you all. We're going to explore a little bit about how we might um, describe our relationship to change. And you can think of it as your relationship to all kinds of change, or you can think about it as in relationship to a particular kind of change that either you've experienced, anticipate experiencing, a change that you'd like to provoke but are reticent for reasons that are fear-based, perhaps. Um, so how would you describe your quality, the quality of feeling about change that you're anticipating? Are you a person who loves change? Are you a person who really prefers to stay on the safe side of the street and isn't so like doesn't like things to get mixed up too much? Are you a person who's like, kind of neither here nor there? Like I can handle change, I'm fine staying where I am, I'm sort of an in between. So thinking about change in your life and what your relationship is to change. And feel free to comment. I can sort of peek at the chat. And as you're thinking about it, I'm going to prompt you to sort of place yourself inside of a process of change and transition to see where you are. Now, many of us are in multiple transitions at once. Some of us have just become empty nesters. Some of us have an ailing parent. Some of us have newborn children. Some of us have just left a job or retired. Some of us have lost a loved one, a spouse, a friend, a dear friend. And all of those things move us away from who we were, from a place of security, identity, status quo, as it were, into a period of transition. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm seeing, yes, trusting in the emergence of that something will emerge, welcoming change as an opportunity to grow. So that's really beautiful because, as we know, many people don't want to grow. They don't want to take risks. Many artists don't grow. They repeat themselves, right? So it takes a certain amount of courage to move into a period in life where there is no map. People are saying, I love growth and learning. Some people feel, oh, retirement's a big change, some unsettling. I love change, the more the better. Excellent. So just mark in your own mind as we go through, and I'll tell you a little bit about my change story. Um, but first, like, have you experienced a big change over the past few years as a result of the pandemic or some other outside event, not of your choosing? So just mark that. Are you anticipating a big change or ready to provoke one for yourself? Great. I see learning to trust and embrace change as an opportunity for learning and growth. Great. And are you celebrating having come through a big transition and discovered or created something new? So you're kind of you're enjoying this place you're at because you feel like you're really flourishing and have landed in a new place, a new beginning. So I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm so interested in helping artists navigate big change. So there are different types of change. There are change can be an event that happens outside of ourselves, um, a crisis. Sometimes it's something that's typically out of our control. Change can be a giant opportunity that feels sort of outsized or something that that catapults us into a new place where everything is new and unknown. And another kind of change, which I work with a lot because a lot of artists who come to me are stretching into the unknown because they've met a threshold inside of themselves where their desire for change outpaces their fear of it. So they want to push into, a studio practice, and yet they're still stuck in a little bit of the identity that they held, that if I leave my family to take my studio practice, I'm not a good mother, for example, right? So underneath a lot of our fear are these underlying beliefs that keep us stuck. And they can be really persnickety and they can last a really long time, even as we grow in certain other ways. What did I call it? I think it's like, it's like a hack, where we do all these amazing workarounds as women and we grow ourselves up in these incredibly capable ways. And there's still this essential flame in ourselves that has a longing, that knows that there's more in store for us. So a little bit about myself. My story that I held on to really tightly was that I was afraid of change, all change. At my wedding, my father said in the speech that I was a girl who was afraid of new ventures. And over time, that story attached to other stories and beliefs that that if I did everything right and I followed the straight path laid out ahead of me, I'd get to a destination where I'd be safe, and where I was would be known, and the people around me would be safe and also known. And so I was a great student, no surprise. I was an amazing student at college. And then when college ended, I felt that I literally had walked off a cliff. And I was totally confused. How could this even be possible? I did everything right, didn't I? But I didn't really know who I was because in my family of origin, my antenna was focused outward. And so I was really good at fixing and pleasing, not so good at knowing and honoring and naming my internal flame, my passion, or my gifts. I went on to do very, I went on to do a very creative path in my life, but I never really embraced the courage that it took to grow myself up and do all the creative things I did. So when college was one ending, and in that ending, I got very interested in transitions because I couldn't understand how someone who thought she did everything right, who was excelled as a student, would then feel completely and utterly lost and feel so alone. So another ending came, and another ending came many, many years later. And my husband died, as Antoinette said. And after that ending, I began to really realize through a lot of uncertainty, experimentation, mess, fear, that I was braver than I knew, and I had been brave in many ways all along in my life. By that, I mean I'd taken risks to grow in so many interesting ways, but I never really gave myself the value. I never really validated it. I didn't really think it was, I didn't see the worth quite in myself and the strength that I had always had. And it took my husband's death and moving into this prolonged period of uncertainty where I could not see the path ahead. No way, no how I could see the path ahead for some time. And to go on a journey where I could eventually claim my own creative worth and my own creative courage. And that meant making choices that seemed incredibly risky and completely off the radar at any other time in my life. Financial risks, employment risks, emotional risks, things that seemed so unsafe and impossible to me before became possible. And actually, more than possible, I really wanted to explore. I was very curious about knowing who I was to the core. and I'm still in that process. It's an unfolding. And my book that I wrote, Braving Creativity, was born of that time because I saw how artists grappled with change, and I saw how bravely they often, not all artists, but many, use their life experience as material to grapple with some of the hardest times in their lives, the real crisis, disease, divorce, death, um, and more, accidents, all of it, and move from denial, from deep fear, from super vulnerability into a transformation that was unique to them. And usually they created something new. They took risks. They played with options, but they seemed impossible before the change. The things they did seemed absolutely impossible. They weren't even whispers on the wind before. And so when their foundation was rocked, it became a catalyst and an opportunity for them to grow radically. There are also stories of this desire where you're stuck in depression and a sense of unworthiness, and you've met your threshold for suffering, and you're willing to take a risk. And sometimes that happens at a certain juncture in your life, based on kind of a mystery. Maybe it's sometimes it's aging related. Sometimes it's just because your heart is calling you to pay attention to something that has a very powerful desire for you to realize. And usually it's because in most cases, you're living in disalignment and it just feels so uncomfortable, that you know that you can no longer live the way you were living. So you're willing to make a choice to go into the unknown, which means that you may fail, and you may not succeed in the way that you had measured up your life before the change. So it looks different. Things look different. The whole world looks different after you've um, ended something either by your own effort or by an outside event. And when women come to me, they're usually coming to me at the door of change. They sort of are, they've met that threshold and they're ready to make a change, but they just don't know how to get unstuck. How do I move into action? And what do I do? There's enormous amount of confusion. So we do have to learn to cultivate some confusion endurance, because we're not going to know. I can't deliver the outcome. I can only deliver you to the path. And the path unfolds with each returning to your intuition, your calling, what your heart is whispering to you, and taking small morsel steps along the way every day to create and open up opportunities for yourself. So the premise that I believe and I work with is that inside the unknown, there's a creative function and process. And there's also a spiritual piece to not knowing, to the surrender to the to whatever you believe in, to you after a crisis, one of the great gifts is this sort of faith that the universe will do some part, and trusting that you have grown yourself up to be the capable, competent, brilliant woman you are, and that you will create opportunities. Like every risk you take, something will happen, not nothing will happen, right? So the work is always going to be continually deepening your understanding of some of the core beliefs and contracts that you engaged with as you grew up in your life, that you had to do when you were small in order to survive in your family of origin. And those beliefs stay with us a really long time. So that's part of the shaking of the foundation to plant a new belief in yourself that you can use as your compass and can guide you forward. And the more you allow yourself to return and create these new foundations for yourself, the more synergies, the more magic, the more alchemy, the more alignment and connectivity and growth happens. So, our tiny practice today is to really ask ourselves where we are in our process of transition. So, one of the first life rafts in any big change, or after big changes occurred, or after you've provoked one, is to locate yourself inside of a process. Because as we all know, when we've had a crisis or we've made a big shift of some kind, we often feel lost and we don't really know where we are. And reassuring women that they are inside of a process that has a purpose and a function for your own growth is important, because then you can recognize not only some of the feeling states, the confusion, the resistance, the denial in those early stages. You can also know that this creative process, just like you would approach any emptiness, is an opportunity to become the creator of your own life, to write your own story forward. And so you can use your creative tools like curiosity and play, retreat, collaboration, all your other tools that you use. When you wake up in the morning, you're not sure what to do because you feel lost. Look to the vocabulary of your creative practice, and you'll find a small step forward that will open up a little light and a little space between you and your beliefs and what is possible. So the tiny practice, I'm going to read a couple of questions and I can put them in the chat. I want you to note, what are the transitions you're currently navigating? Are there more than one? And then I'd like you to, again, reflect on how you feel about the change you're either currently experiencing or the transition you're in. Are you embracing it? Are you still resisting it a little bit, and where? Do you feel sort of neutral about it? It's not a big deal. I'm putting these in the chat. So the third one is, where are you now? Are you experiencing the ending right now? Are you in the midst of the change event itself? Are you experiencing an ending right now? Are you letting go? And what have you let go of? If you're exploring, what are you exploring? What are some of the little risks you're taking, some of the small steps? And if you've arrived at a new beginning, what's the gift of that path that you've taken? What did you take? What were some of the moments where you felt real transformation and insight occur? And that just goes to, what choices can you make inside of the unknown to explore new possibilities? So if you weren't afraid of the horizon in the distance sort of extending out for infinity, and you could play in this empty space for as long as you wanted, what are some of the things you're really genuinely curious about? And then I think finally, and this speaks to the desire that is that longing in your heart. Who are you becoming as a result of the courage you have to grow? Who are you becoming as a result of your courage to grow? And I'm just going to read one little excerpt um, from an artist who's a choreographer in the book who had just undergone treatment for breast cancer. And she was invited to create a piece as part of a festival. And it was supposed to be an autobiographical dance piece. And she was afraid. She was didn't know her body if her body could do the work anymore. She was in her 60s. She wasn't sure she could do the work. And so she asked for a collaborator. Her husband had said, who's a musician who was doing the score, said, well, maybe you should collaborate. So she chose just the right collaborator, someone who could hold the space for her not to be the boss lady anymore, as she said, because she's a renowned choreographer. If she was going to deal with her personal healing journey, she didn't want to have to also be in charge of it, right? And she had this beautiful collaboration, and they created a duet. And one of the script pieces from the duet, because it was a sort of a multidisciplinary piece. There's no interpretation I'm offering here. And neither did she, but you'll take what you will from it. But it goes to that moment of how change can feel for some in certain moments. Okay, so I'm just going to read that. This is choreographer Cynthia Oliver. Gonna strike you down from your perch. There will be no ledge, no vantage, no church. Everything you've known will change. I'ma disorient you, take away what keeps you grounded, together, secure. What you thought would always be there will crumble and disappear. I'ma pull you out from your roots, put you where you can't grasp, can't reach. Ain't no fruit. I'ma make the earth shift. That's excerpted from a 2014 performance of a piece called Boom. You can learn about Cynthia Oliver um, online, and she's also professor of dance and performance at the University of Illinois Champaign. Um, so I get it. It's no joke when your foundation shifts, and it's also an enormous opportunity to grow and to know yourself in a way that I believe by the end of your days, you will never regret having done and spent the time to to do the work uh, and stay curious inside of great uncertainty. So I just really appreciate this time. I can hand it back to Antoinette, and I hope to kind of come around the back end, but just to celebrate you all for your courage, your curiosity, and your willingness to play inside of the unknown in order to grow. We need you growing. So thank you.
Naomi, thank you so much. This is so beautiful, and what a beautiful practice to be able to tap into our own courage and what it takes to embrace change. So we will now turn to each other for the best part of Women Together Connect. Although having you here, it's all equal, but we will turn to each other and just share what is coming up for you based on the reflections that we just did. You don't need to go through each question and share it, but just notice if there's something new that's coming up, or an insight that you may be sitting with now, or something that you may have felt moved by. So just being with what's come up, share your name, where you're coming from, and what's coming up for you. We have about 20 minutes, and we will have a few minutes at the end back with Naomi. So feel free to enjoy the time together, and we'll be back in 20 minutes.
Hi, Bernadette. If you can hear me, you've been assigned to a breakout room. If you'd like, you can click on a button on the bottom of your dock to join it.